Yo, what's a crack? I'm glad you made it. Today's video is all about the pike push-up. This is hands down one of the best bodyweight exercises to add mass to your shoulders. Plus, pike push-ups are a great tool to develop the angle-specific strength you need for the handstand push-up. But in today's video, I'm only going to focus on the pike push-up as a tool for muscle growth. The version of the pike push-up that I'll be showing you today is a movement that trains your upper body pushing strength in a rather unconventional direction. But hang on a second, isn't the pike push-up the bodyweight version of the overhead press? Well, not quite. If you analyze the line of action more closely, you'll realize that this bodyweight movement is actually a hybrid between an incline bench press and the overhead press. The pressing angle at the bottom is akin to the incline bench press, but as you overcome the resistance, the movement morphs into a vertical push that resembles the lockout of a military press. So, because you're essentially doing an incline bench press and an overhead press in the same repetition, it takes a little bit of practice to get the technique down when you do pike push-ups. My hope is that by sharing some useful cues and demonstrating some common mistakes people make when they first start doing pike push-ups is that you will be able to expedite your learning curve with this movement. In case you don't have access to a gym or external weights, you don't necessarily need to give up on your dream of growing Boulder shoulders. So let's learn how to do a pike push-up. When someone attempts to get into a pike position for the first time, they usually underestimate the amount of hip flexion and hamstring flexibility that is required. You want to bring your toes as close to the hip line as possible. Your goal is not to improve hip mobility with this movement, but to build capped, well-rounded shoulders by getting stronger at this exercise. The closer you bring your feet to the hips, the harder you'll make the pike push-up. Another typical mistake is a soft midsection. Here you would want a degree of flexion in your back for the setup. Hold your core and push your hips high. Once you get into that position, lock it until the end of the set. Your midsection is not meant to move at all. An isometrically contracted core is meant to stabilize the resistance you're gonna have to overcome. Everything in calisthenics requires great body awareness, and the pike push-up is no exception to this rule. Hand placement is another variable to look at, but please don't overcomplicate it. Start with a slightly wider than shoulder width apart and see how that feels. At the end of the day, everyone is different. There's so much variation when it comes to limb lengths, so you might want to adjust your hands to a position that is more comfortable with your individual anthropometry. Just beware that the narrower your hands are, the more triceps you'll be using. Both are correct and you're gonna get great results with either, so pick the one that agrees better with you. A key point I want to stress in this video is that your body is not supposed to travel in a vertical line during a pike push-up. Lean forward when you come down so that you avoid keeping your head between your hands. If you drop your head straight down, this is going to massively shorten the range of motion of the movement. And in case you haven't noticed, the pike push-up on the ground is already a partial repetition. You don't have enough room for your head to keep going down. I'll discuss how to fix this situation later on. This forward lean helps you clear your head out of the way to an extent, but how far forward should you go? A reasonable answer to this question would be to aim for the point where both your shoulders and arms are at the strongest position to produce force against the ground. When your forearms are in a perpendicular line to the surface, then your wrist and elbow joints will be stacked. This is going to be the most mechanically advantageous position for you to overcome the massive moment arm you've just created by leaning forward. Big compound pressing movements recruit multiple muscle groups. The pectoralis, anterior deltoid, and triceps are the primary movers during a pike push-up. Flaring out the elbows is the natural compensation that occurs when certain muscle groups are not strong enough to perform their function. Relative tricep weakness and/or scapular upward rotation are the most likely cause of flare-out arms. If there is a slight flaring out of the arms in the last grindy rep of a set when the goal is hypertrophy, it's not a big deal. But if you see that your arms are intact in all throughout the entire set, then you might want to consider the following options. The pike push-up is too hard of an exercise for you at this point. Go back to the basics and keep getting stronger at moves that develop upper body pressing strength. You might want to replace the pike push-up for a movement that uses external weights for the time being. Additionally, working the negatives of a pike push-up could also make sense for you. Use smaller exercises to address weak points. Hypertrophy the crap out of your shoulders and triceps with single joint movements. Skipping the final inches of the movement is a great disservice to your upper trapezius. Shrugging at the top increases trap activation, which is a muscle that supports the scapula. More importantly, scapula elevation allows for more room in the AC joint. Simply put, shrugging makes the bones that could cause impingement at the shoulder to shift away from the head of the humerus. Remember, no pain means more gains in the long run. Besides, the shrug reinforces maximum shoulder flexion. Out of all the technique cues I've discussed so far in this video, this is, without a doubt, the worst mistake you could make. If you fail to keep your feet on your toes throughout the entire set, you'd be accommodating the resistance to make the exercise easier. In plain English, you would be cheating. Think about doing an overhead press with 50 kg at the bottom, but then you only get to work with 40 kg at the top. Where did those 10 kilograms go? You're essentially stealing plates from your own lift if you want to think about it in traditional weightlifting lingo. Make sure that you avoid unloading the exercise by shifting your feet back. The distribution of your body weight should remain as constant as possible throughout the entire set. Lastly, let's talk about progressing the pike push-up. If progressive overload is a must for building muscle, how can we make this bodyweight exercise harder over time? It's not like we can add a 5-pound plate to a barbell like we would typically do in the gym. 3 fantastic ways to ensure progress are increasing the range of motion, elevating your feet, and a combination of these two. As I pointed out before, the pike push-up on the ground has its own limitations with regards to range of motion. But a simple solution to this issue is to perform the exercise close to a net or with bars. If you set up on a platform with a small fall, you could use the edge to keep heading down. In order for you to turn this progression into something that you can objectively quantify, you need to determine a specific range of motion and stick to it. The tactile feedback of your chest tapping the edge could be a good tool to keep yourself accountable. Increasing the range of motion at the bottom is going to dramatically drop the number of reps you are able to do because you're now displacing the load in the most disadvantageous position of the lift. The other progression you can do is to elevate your feet. This is going to increase the percentage of your body weight acting as resistance. However, this option is more suitable for those of you who are working towards the handstand push-up, simply because it is closer to the specific angle strength you'll need for this skill. If your goal is more focused on hypertrophy of your shoulder muscles, I would recommend prioritizing the first method, if only because the bottom of the pike push-up is the part where the shoulders have to work the hardest. And finally, when you add the two together, you get a hell of an exercise. Check out these 2 videos, I think you're gonna like them. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to choose all when you click on the bell to get notified every time a new video goes live. Stay fit, stay strong, peace.